You ever get that feeling where you're approaching the end of the year and you suddenly realize, oh my god, I haven't gotten through some of these books that I have had on my TBR for ages that I've been promising myself that I'd get through by the end of the year? Well, let's talk a little bit about what is going to be a pretty stacked November TBR. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Nikhil with Shelf-Esteem. I'm a composer, now also a booktuber. You can find my music in The Wheel of Time Season 2, His Dark Materials Season 3, and the official Brent Week's companion album for a series Lightbringer that came out last year. So, I always love to do these TBR videos. It's one of my favorite things on the channel to do because it really warrants discussion. You know, we are all trying to plan out what we want to read because we all want to read more books and we want to maximize the time that we have to read the stories that we love. So, it's always fun to kind of talk about them with you. So leave it in the comments and let me know after you watch this video if you have a TBR already kind of scheduled. I always like to schedule mine a few days before the month ends because if I can kind of put this video up a few days before, then for those of you who want to join in, we can do soft read-alongs. I have a new Discord channel now, which I'm linking down below. And it's a small but growing community of book addicts like myself. And, we can open up some more channels based on interest and do some soft read-alongs for those. So without further ado, if you like this kind of video, please like and subscribe. It always helps out the channel. I know it's one of those things I have to say every video ad nauseum, but I really appreciate you bearing with me. And if you feel compelled to, please like and subscribe. I'm going to dive right into what is going to be a pretty stacked list because I kind of realized, man, I have so much I want to finish off and it's so much I want to really dive into in the world of reading over the next couple months. So I was trying to kind of like situate myself and figure out which books I would want to do in November and then which ones I would do in December. So I'm going to start with, of course, a Stephen King book. Because he's my favorite author of all time. I'll probably say that in every video, even non-Stephen King videos. But this one I had read kind of in a blur when it first came out, and I gotta say, like, now that I just found out that the A24 is adapting this particular work by Stephen King and doing a 10-episode limited series, more on that in this video, I figured I want to kind of reread it, but kind of digest the story a little bit more depth. See if it might be something worth pitching on, and also B, it's fun to reread things that you've kind of read in a blur when something first comes out. You're like, I just want to read the whole thing and read it really fast. So this is a book that I think is kind of two stories. It's got a fantastical element, but it's also got a coming of age. And I'm talking, of course, about Stephen King's Fairy Tale. Also one of his best covers in recent memory, I would say. Just a beautiful, beautiful cover. Even the feel of the cover feels really nice. So anyways, I don't know if you all judge a book by its cover like I do, but I definitely do to some extent. So I'm excited to get to this one. This one's going to be a priority for me this month. Now, the next one, I kind of mentioned in a previous weekly update, which I'm linking up here as well, that I wanted to do a little bit more indie published stuff because, I think indie published books are fantastic in their own right and they deserve the love that they don't necessarily get through the marketing muscle of a traditional published book. So I figured I want to try to see if I can do one a month. That's kind of my goal and we'll see how it goes. And I connected with some wonderful authors over the last couple months, one of which is Andy A.R. Witham, and he sent me his The Crimes of Rooker Flynn. So in that weekly update, I kind of go over this in quite depth. I read the back of it and kind of give you an idea of what this is. But in case you're curious, it's got giant spiders on the cover, and I'm willing to test, if I still have arachnophobia or not. About to find out by reading this. So excited to get into it. Again, Andy, thank you so much for sending this to me. And I'm excited to put this in my priority list for November. Now, the next one is actually going to be a read-along, buddy read, with a good friend of mine, John from Disquiet and Dragons. I've talked about him tons on this channel, so anyone who's a regular watcher of the channel has heard about his channel or watched his channel and enjoyed his great content. He always films in nature, which I love because I envy where he lives. He lives in the English countryside, and every time he films a video, he has something in a beautiful nature spot. So it's always nice to chat with that guy, just a lovely person. And we've been making our way through John Gwynn's Bloodsworn saga. Now we're a little bit behind because I know the new book has just been released. and I actually got the copy sitting on my shelf, which is gonna kind of compel us to read this a little faster, and that is book 2 of the Bloodsworn saga, The Hunger of the Gods. These covers definitely should win some awards if they haven't already. Look at that. It's insane. Beautiful, beautiful artwork. And it's a pretty chunky book, it looks like. Now, I don't want to really read the back of this because I don't want to spoil anything for those of you who haven't read book 1. But basically, the idea is it's kind of fantasy, Norse-inspired fantasy, and it is kind of gritty and dark, like John Gwynn's other works. I gotta say, when we read The Shadow of the Gods, I think both John and I both felt like it was a cool book, but it wasn't anything mind-blowing, and I felt like compared to Faithful and the Fallen, maybe I'm just kind of had that bias towards Faithful and the Fallen that it's just like my favorite, so it's hard for anything to kind of meet or top that, but I'm still very excited about The Hunger of the Gods. Because, you know, I liked enough of the threads that were introduced in the first book that I'm excited to check out the second. And I do have the third one on my shelf because I got to collect them. So I'm definitely looking forward to reading this one in November and then, you know, Fury of the Gods in December. So that's going to be a really fun buddy read. And we'll keep you posted if we do a discussion on any of these or if we end up doing one of the trilogy as a whole. Just depends on how book 2 goes for both of us. I'll check in with John and we'll revert back with you all soon. But that is the other one that I'm going to be reading. So as you can tell, it's a pretty stacked fantasy month. Also because, you know, October was very much a horror month, and so it kind of made me reappreciate the character depth that you experience in fantasy. Now, don't get me wrong, I love horror. It's one of my favorite genres to read, but those books are usually more standalones. They don't have a ton of cast of characters, and the character development is, you know, it's more plot driven oftentimes than, you know, heavy on the characters with nothing happening. And I kind of like those stories too. You know, I like both. So I'm very excited to get to more fantasy, but to continue a little bit on the fantasy train here. Now, this I put the cover in another room and I was too lazy to get it, but this is a reread of Brandon Sanderson's Rhythm of War, a nice 1,200 page behemoth right here. So I'm rereading this because I want to get ready for Wind and Truth when it comes out December 6th. And you know, honestly, I gotta say this was my least favorite of the Stormlight books, the four books that have been released so far. And it was because a lot of it felt like there was a lot more science element to it, which, you know, when it's a magic system like a Brandon Sanderson's that is much more like a hard magic system with a lot of rules and kind of lore, it ends up being, you know, already intimidating enough. And then when you see the science behind all that lore, it really was a heavy part of this book, and it didn't gel with me as much on the first read. But I gotta say, I'm about 100 something pages deep right now, which is like not even a dent in this book. But I am loving it the second time around. I don't know if it's just my expectations were tempered compared to the previous one. I don't know if, you know, because I know what to expect, it's kind of like I can just dive into the world and the characters. I don't know if it's because I've missed them so much. Because, you know, when I first read this, I'd read all 4 in that same year. And so, you know, reading 4 books of this size, maybe I feel not as, you know, kind of chomping at the bit to read the next one. So that could also be a reason. But I gotta say, I'm loving this so far. And I kind of started a little bit early so that I could get a jump on this because I knew this was going to be a massive tome. And I wanted to make sure that I get a chance to finish this in well enough time to give myself a little bit of a break before Wind and Truth comes out. So this is the next book on deck. Look at this stack here already. This is just 4 books, by the way. I just want to relay to you how insane this is. So that's the 4 right there. Then and wait, there's more. So I read book 1 of the Edan trilogy by Philip Chase, BookTube's own Philip Chase. You know, I absolutely loved it. I gotta say, like, the writing just kind of falls off the page and into your mind. Like, it's like you're getting an intravenous a fantasy injection, you know. It really feels like that. It's got enough of the traditional fantasy, but it also feels very different because of the religious overtones in terms of how religion can be used to manipulate the masses. And I feel like, you know, Philip Chase does this so well in the first book, and it was a pleasant surprise. You know, I didn't know what to expect, I gotta say, and I just fell in love with that world, and I can't wait to revisit it. And that's going to be with The Prophet of Edan that I'm going to read in November. I'm going to read the last book in December. But Prophet of Edan, I'm very excited to kind of check out as well. If you haven't checked out Philip Chase's works, what are you waiting for? Stop this video. Actually, just pause it right here and click on the link below and check it out. I mean it. Like, it's really great. I'd gotten them on a sale. He does these sales periodically where he had, I think, all three for like 99 cents each. So a steal at any price, but definitely check those out. Now, the last book on the list is going to be a nice little group read. And I'm very excited about this because I recently joined the Discord channel Fright Club, which is created by Cliff from Cliff's Dark Gems, who I've talked about a ton on this channel, and I'm linking them down below. And then also Crits from Crits Reads. So I have been following their Discord channel quite a bit over the last month or so since they started it. I think there's like 45 members now, a nice growing community of horror book aficionados, and this one is no exception. This was one that was chosen by people on the Discord channel as a book that they all wanted to read as a group. And I had heard about this particular author from Mike's book reviews, and that is Ronald Malfi. And I've heard he's supposed to be fantastic, but I haven't read any Ronald Malfi. So when I saw a poll that was on that Discord channel about which book we should choose for November, I chose Ronald Malfi. I was so glad this one was chosen. This one is called The Night Parade. Just got this from the library, hence the kind of glossier cover here. I'm going to read the back for you so you could check it out for yourself if you'd like to. Of course, link down below. They call it Wanderer's Folly, a disease of delusions, of daydreams and nightmares, a plague threatening to wipe out the human race. After 2 years of creeping decay, David Arlen woke up one morning thinking that the worst was over. By midnight, he's bleeding and terrified. His wife is dead, and he's on the run in a stolen car with his 8-year-old daughter, who may be the key to a cure. Ellie is a special girl, deep, insightful, and she knows David is lying to her, lying about her mother, lying about what they're running from, and lying about what he sees when he takes his eyes off the road. That sounds horrifying and amazing at the same time. Got a little post-apocalyptic feel to it too, maybe something supernatural as well. And it will be a nice little break from all the dense fantasy that I have going on this coming month. So really looking forward to, I always love to have like something that feels very different than the rest of them to kind of break things up. And that's one thing I was missing from my horror month this month, was it was all just straight up horror. So I was kind of excited to get back to fantasy, and now that fantasy will make me excited to get back to horror. You know, the mental games we play with ourselves to continue to read the books that we love. But that is my behemoth of a list. Let me know what your behemoth of a list is in November, and I'd love to hear from you. And let me know if you've read any of these and if you would recommend any alternates for these authors as well, because I'm always on the hunt to expand my TBR, because you know what they say, like just as your TBR starts to get closer to the finish line, you have 100 more books to add to the list. So that's what I like to say anyway. So with that, I'm Nikhil with Shelf-Esteem. Thank you so much for watching again. I really appreciate you all being here. I've just been enjoying creating this community with all of you. We have a small but growing community here. And yeah, it's just great to talk with you all about the books that we love, books that we feel that should get more attention as well. So with that, please like and subscribe, and be good to yourself, be good to each other. I will see you on the next video as always. Take care.